You know, like I said, I know you went to, what was it, an 11 p.m. showing last night?
10:55. That's
10:55.
commitment, everybody.
And it was like a 2 hour and 20-minute movie.
It was.
You know, I actually looked throughout the week. The movie was playing earlier in the week at earlier times.
It was. And actually, I'll save that for the broadcast proper of the story of why it took us why I had to cram my homework in at 0 hour. I felt like I was in college again and I had a deadline to meet. And oh yeah, no, that was like talking about waiting because there was no shows between 11 o'clock last night and this when we record on Sunday morning. There wasn't a 2 a.m. or a 4 a.m. show. It was my last shot.
You got the last
my last
show.
Shot. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. So you were traveling.
Indeed, I was. We were in Kansas City last weekend.
Was it as titillating as I expected it to be?
We didn't do much. We just kind of hit a few counties, had some dinner, and
more than one, I imagine.
Yeah. Did see Jenny Baker. Went to a
I saw a
place-
picture. Yeah. Now we're mentioning her on the air again. I think we've mentioned her on the air once
She
before.
said she was going to listen.
Well, she better now.
Yeah.
We're name dropping her.
We sure are. We went to a place that had for $5 you can play all the arcade games that they had in the thing there.
They have any old classics?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, they had some Nintendo games, but they also had like the Frogger and the Miss Pac-Man and the Pac-Man.
You drop $10 and then you get to play all you want.
Jenny Baker paid for me, so I paid nothing.
You're a bit of a mooch when you come into town.
We were willing to pay. She refused our cash.
All right. Well, hey, I'm here. Pay for my video games.
Yep.
They have a place like that. We, of course,
Chicago, somewhere in like North or Gurnee or somewhere.
Closer. Menominee Falls.
Really?
And they have some kind of arcade. We're in Wisconsin. This is where we record this. For those of you not in Wisconsin,
How much and how many games?
$15, but I hear, and it's more of like a bar tavern.
That's what
setting.
this place
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
They only
Although
had.
well, that's not true because actually kids can go because my youngest son went with his buddy last year. And he came home and was just raving because he knows of my fondness for, obviously, for old gaming. He said, Dad, you got to see it. This place would be like your heaven. And, I guess $15, all you can play, but there's a lot. Like all the old classics.
Yeah.
I mean, just like as far as the eye can see, apparently. So I have to get there because, $15. And but then, it's
There's also my basement, though, where I have my 5 arcade games.
Yeah, you got the big ones, one of which
Has
contains
39 games on it.
Of those 39, there's a bunch of weird ones, though, isn't there?
There are
There's not a
some
lot
strange
of-
ones on there, but I would say 2/3 of them are well-known games. You got your Donkey Kong and your Frogger and your
Is it the
Miss
exact
Pac-Man.
recreation?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
it's not like some
yes.
sort of weird ripoff thing?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, there are some funky ones on there that I never heard of before either, but
We have a Tron machine. That's the biggest one.
that was one of my
ridiculous.
life goals, yes.
Now, how often do you fire that baby up?
Not very often, but
It's a shame.
I did actually play it
Did you ever,
a couple
beat it?
months ago.
I mean, you own it.
There's nothing to beat. It's just
2 points.
It's just keep going and keep going and keep going.
And it gets faster and
Yes.
faster.
We're going to rearrange that basement hopefully in the next year, and then I'll have those machines more accessible than where they currently are. They're kind of hidden behind some DVD shelves, but
I suppose for laundry, you can use them to dry a shirt.
you could.
Probably not recommended to.
But when you get those machines turned on and they're all fired up and it sounds like an arcade in there, and it's wonderful.
That's kind of neat.
It's wonderful.
Down there with all of your DVD and VHS content.
Basking in the glory of movie glow.
Yes. Do you add a whole lot this week?
Watching? Yes.
Not watching. I'm talking about physically.
No.
I've been in a bit of a slump myself. I did well I had a little hiccup about 4 weeks ago. And then I had to pay for bills and stuff. So
Yeah.
kind of put the kibosh on that. So all right, well, let's talk about movies then. I'll make a show.
There's a doggy.
One for the ages. Front Row Center is back on the air. That's right, or back on the net, or back on the net waves. We don't really occupy the airwaves. We occupy the net waves because we don't want to pay all of those FCC fees. And it's very nice to be back on the air after a sort of strange little quasi-hiatus. We had a few extra days because we had
You mean we weren't live last week Sunday? I swear I heard a show playing it Sunday.
That's the weird part, is that I always tell people I can easily be in two places at once. So it works out well. Anyway, we're going to talk about some new movies that are out there. A lot of good stuff out there right now. We're actually a little bit behind the curve, dare I say. We catching up to a movie that began a week prior, and most of the reviews are probably already out. But none of the, I would contend, none of the reviews actually count, because this is the one that people are waiting for.
No reviews from Ozaukee County yet.
That is true. I think that's probably accurate. So we're going to talk about Ford v Ferrari. Did you know that in the UK what they're calling this movie?
No.
Le Mans 66.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like Death Trucks.
No. Now, that would be great. No. They're calling it Le Mans 66, I guess, for whatever reason. We're going to talk about that, too. I think it's kind of interesting how open the Ford Motor Company must have been to allow this movie to go forward. I think that's kind of interesting on a corporate level. You know?
There were good things happening, so...
And there were not so good things happening, but we'll talk about that too. And we're going to review a film that I was positively dreading called Let It Snow, a Netflix original that premiered, I believe, in the beginning of this month. And so we're just getting into it now. Yeah, I think in the first week of November, I think it dropped.
Actually, I can probably answer
cool.
that.
Yeah, go right ahead. You dig that up while I chat. And
nope, can't answer it for you.
All right, then. Thank you very much for being the information source of Front Row Center.
The app is not as functional as the desktop version.
Indeed. So, but that's our streaming movie of the week, so we'll do those two. And I'm not going to make any promises this week, but if the reviews are streamlined and we get our business done in a orderly fashion, perhaps we'll get to a Star Wars chat.
I'm ready to go.
This is week 4. So
I do have a question for you, though.
This could be a running gag. We could actually be promising the same Star Wars chat the same time next year.
Will we actually watch the movie and review it that week?
That's an interesting thing. We'll have to discuss the machinations and choreography of getting that. It's a big enough movie that I would actually drop everything. I'm not going. I know you got your tickets. You're in the books.
Opening night. We're there.
We have almost a standing tradition in our family now for the newest batch of Star Wars films. A standing tradition being twice. That we always go on that Sunday afternoon. So for The Force Awakens, we were there Sunday afternoon. Last Jedi, Sunday afternoon. So I'm presuming we're going to probably see this on Sunday afternoon. It's the only time, pardon me, it's the only time in my family's history that all 7 of us have gone to a movie together. Because as you can imagine...
Wait, are you up to 7 now? I guess you are, aren't you?
7 humans, yes. Okay. 5 children, 2 adults, yes. So, as you can imagine, dragging 7 people to one showing can be a bit, that's like a plane ticket.
We've done 6. Oh, yeah. Well, no, what you got to do is get your parents to help out.
Wow. We were talking prior to the show about the ultimate mooch. And he continues. So, yes. Well,
don't your parents want to see their grandchildren?
They do.
Oh, but they don't go to Star Wars. I can't see your mom going to Star Wars.
Not in the dark with lightsabers flashing. No, I have no interest whatsoever. And in fact, my dad, actually, he didn't. He enjoyed the Star Wars films with me, but he has yet to see these. He was just
my parents were there in the theater.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, I guess you have cool parents.
I guess so.
All right.
Question for you.
Yes, bring it.
Okay. If we were pretending this was... whatever. Screw it. It's been...
Where'd that question go?
It's been about 11 days since the last time we did this.
That's true.
Other than the 2 movies we're going to review, what, if anything, have you seen?
I have rewatched some films of some favorites.
Well, good. That's an improvement.
It is an improvement. Yeah, I had a little more time during the week, I think. So, but nonetheless, certainly...
Give them to me.
Gosh, I was ill prepared. By the time the show is over, I could probably dig them up.
We've only done this 3 other times, so yeah, I can see why you'd be ill prepared.
Yeah, right. Yes. Well, I didn't think this particular question was coming. So, gosh, what did I watch? Okay. Last night on the great Sven Gulli show, I don't mind name dropping, which we have on our local MeTV affiliate. I watched just about all of. Creature from the Black Lagoon was on last night.
It's been a long time since I've seen that thing.
It's a pretty good movie. I think it gets lauded appropriately for its makeup effects because the Gill Man is a very impressive creation.
Now, didn't they remake that as like The Shape of Water?
It wasn't an official remake. I mean, one could say that Guillermo del Toro liberally borrowed, I would say, and added sex, which is great. I mean, I think everybody wanted to see the creature, what he could do and was capable of.
Sex with a fish. That's the way.
There you go.
Best picture of the year.
That's all it
Won
takes.
the Oscar.
I got to think of I want an Oscar too. So I'm wondering what I can sex with a mole or something. I don't know.
Did the Revenant didn't win Best Picture? Did it?
Did indeed.
Did it? Are you sure? Or at least nominated, but
maybe
he practically had sex with a bear in that movie.
That is very true. That is very,
there's
very
a bestiality theme going on with these movies now.
That's the thing. That's the slant. If you're a up and coming filmmaker, you want to look into that.
Yeah.
Not promoting it here on this show, but So Creature of the Black Lagoon, and then streaming wise, I just from flipping around. I believe I watched a kung fu movie this week as well. So nothing. A lot of comfort food films, if anything, filler. It's just stuff to kind of, but nothing that I, sat down to ingest with any sort of discernment. So yes.
All right. Well, let me rattle mine off.
Here it comes. Oh, that's right. This is kind of a show feature. What did Burt watch this week? We should introduce ourselves, by the way. I'm Jeff Messerman. That's Burt Wardall. He watches more movies than I do. But I like to think I'm quality over quantity, perhaps. But we'll see what he's got for us.
We got some pretty good quality in here. I've watched 22 movies since last we met.
Remarkable.
Yes.
Do you ever speak to your family? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah. In fact, the wife watches the majority of these with me.
That could be, with your titles, that could be seen as a version of spousal abuse, but that's just my opinion.
All right, we started with, there's 22 movies here. Only 3 of them are Hallmark this week. That means 19 that weren't.
A light week, okay.
We started with Nostalgic Christmas. That's Hallmark.
Shocking.
And then we had...
It's the season.
We had something called Secrets in the Dark.
That's not Hallmark.
Lowbrow German.
That's the other thing we should do. We could make a game show of guess which titles are Hallmark and are not. I think we did a little of that last week. So.
Yeah, then we watched The Laundromat.
Hallmark?
No.
Naughty.
No, that's a real movie.
All right.
Spring Fever USA.
Yes.
Christmas in Homestead. That's a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Followed by Cherry Hill High. Definitely not a Hallmark movie.
Oh, my.
Something called Christmas in Love, which was definitely Hallmark. And now the rest of the way, non-Hallmark. Here we go.
Here we are.
Vasectomy.
With the great Paul Sorvino.
Paul Sorvino, yes.
Yeah, kind of, that as amusing as that title is, of course. It's a spoof and a farce, isn't it? I mean,
it's not a great farce.
No, but they tried.
Yeah, they
tried
sure
to do like
did.
a Mel Brooks type of thing or whatever.
The aforementioned Ford versus Ferrari, which we'll be discussing very soon. Then we got a couple of classics here: An American Werewolf in London,
good movie,
and The Howling.
Ooh.
2 movies back to back that I saw in the theater actually in 1981.
Kind of in a werewolf mood this week, aren't you?
Great movies. Buy and Sell, CELL. And we don't need to talk about that. Tiffany Jones.
I remember that one. They used to show up on Showtime all the time.
It sure did.
Yeah,
It sure did.
Yeah.
And
the late Mike Zeman and I used to talk about that. That was just an opportunity for me to name drop the late Mike Zeman.
Yes. Blinded by the Light, the Bruce Springsteen-inspired film, which came out earlier this year.
Oh, I wanted to see that. That looked really interesting.
It is good. It is good. We've got some real movies here, too.
I'd like to see the Western Stars. That new album is, it's not everyone's cup of tea, probably, because it's kind of a country thing. But you know my fandom for Glenn Campbell.
I do.
And Springsteen said early on when he took after this album, they said, I just want to make my own Glenn Campbell album. And I was like, oh, well, sign me up. And so I heard most of the album's terrific if you're into that sort of thing.
I've actually seen Bruce Springsteen in concert twice.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then yesterday, we watched, count them, 8 movies yesterday.
That is...
It's a record for me, I think. Oh, no. I did 9 once. I watched.
Okay.
Yeah. But
8 didn't sound like a record.
Yeah, I watched all 9 at that time, Friday the 13th movies in one day back in about 1999.
Go ahead, man.
Okay, Dora and the Lost City of Gold.
I heard good things about that.
It's actually quite entertaining. Actually, the first 25, it's like a fish out of water thing because she's going from the jungle to high school, which is pretty cute.
What a strange project.
Yeah, but it was actually pretty well done. And then we watched The Good Boys. My wife visited the Red Box Friday night.
Oh, yeah, that's that's actually supposed to be pretty amusing
that
too.
That was decent.
Yeah.
It was decent, but
bunch of potty mouth kids, basically.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah.
But the cream of the crop was something called Peanut Butter Falcon.
I'm dying to see that. That looks
was
fantastic.
Fantastic movie. Yes,
I'm looking forward to that.
Great movie featuring Jake the Snake Roberts.
Oh, he's in there.
Yes,
oh, very good.
As is Mick Foley.
Yeah, that looks just. That played up here at the Rivoli, and I was going to go see it when it played the second round, and I didn't make it. But
yeah, we also watched Thanksgiving, perfect for the holidays.
Of course.
About a killer turkey.
Sure.
I watched something called Spectres, a Donald Pleasance horror movie from the 80s.
Oh, very nice.
Italian made.
Yeah, must have been awful.
It wasn't good, no. I watched a streaming movie last night called The King.
Oh yeah, that looked really. I mean, if you're,
we might talk about that.
Yeah, we should. Okay, let's
ready.
Let's leave that in the hopper.
I watched probably it is the oldest movie in my collection, as well as the shortest movie in my collection.
Nosferatu?
1910. No.
Oh.
It's only 12 and a half minutes long. It's called Frankenstein. Thomas Edison's
the Edison one,
yes.
absolutely. That's really interesting. Is your copy like viewable? Because
they've
remastered it, and I know you can get better versions now. The one you have from way back when.
The one I have was the first one that came out, about 2001, maybe.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure it's better, but yeah, it's 12 and a half minutes. I can take it. And then we finished the night with something called The Night Before Christmas. It's KNIGHT, which is a brand new Netflix streaming movie that came out like 3 days ago.
Oh man, you're branching out on your own a little bit there.
Damn right.
What brought you to that one? Although by then you had already done 7 movies. What compelled you to say, we should try 8? I mean,
we started that one at 10 o'clock at night too. Well, we thought, you know what, you're going to be at the theater at 11. You're going to be pushing the midnight hour, so we can push one more today.
As long as I've known him, he's always tried to get just one little leg up on me. I could never put a crown on because he's always there with a dagger. All right. Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will talk about what should we do first?
Let it snow.
Okay, let's do that one. That makes sense to me. So we'll be back right after this. In that time away, maybe you can cram in 8 movies. Our theme song there, which you're hearing as we're coming back from the break, I catch myself during the week whistling it now, which is like some kind of sickness, I think, but, that's all right. Front Row Center is the name of the show, and that was our theme, and those were our commercials, and we're back to talk about a film that is only on Netflix. You can only stream it, and it is called, as a seasonal, I guess you could call it a seasonal offering.
It's definitely seasonal.
Let It Snow. And I found out during the opening credits that it's actually based on a book, a young adult book. One of the authors is John Green, who many of you might know from. He did the. Of course, now it escapes me. They've adapted his
Paper Towns, The Fault in Our Stars.
That's Paper Towns and Fault in Our Stars. Yes, those two, both of which were adapted for film. Neither of which I've seen, but my daughters have, and they enjoy them quite a bit.
I've seen Fault in Our Stars, which is good. Paper Towns, I can't remember if I've seen it or not.
All right. So he had a hand in this, so a little bit of quality control there, I guess. But Burt, why don't you tell us what this movie's all about?
Well, we're going to keep this very simple here, actually. It's
a lot of stories.
Yeah, I guess you could call it a coming of age film, kind of. It's basically
20s though, 20-somethings, which was surprising.
Well, was it because there's one girl who's about to be going to Columbia University, so I assumed she was a senior in high school.
I guess, yeah.
So
yeah.
That's what I was trying. I couldn't quite remember, but anyway, yeah, we're talking young adults or very. Almost adults, like whatever the
freshly out of high school, the bulk of them was
that age. Yeah. And was there much of a plot here, really? I mean, it's basically just a few days in the lives of these kids. There's one girl who's been accepted to Columbia University, but she doesn't want to go because her mom has got some sort of disease and she's might die in the next 6 months, so she doesn't want to leave her mom. And there's this one girl who works in a place, a Waffle House of some sort.
Awful House.
Lesbian, that's right. She's a lesbian, and she's worrying about her relationships. And then the one girl who's going to Columbia, or perhaps going to Columbia.
Yes.
I think it was her, wasn't it? The one who she meets a singer, like a soul singer.
Yeah, R&B kind of guy. Young up and coming star, I would say, very popular already. their chance meeting on a train, and she
there's a snowstorm that basically grounds the train to a halt near their town. So she just hops out and says, "I'm going to go get some waffles."
Right,
and then the guy decides to follow her, and they strike up a friendship. And I don't know, that there's really not much more plot to that. It's just a few days in the lives of relationships and the kids. And
Joan Cusack covered in tinfoil.
Joan Cusack was covered in tinfoil. She was the local crazy cat lady.
Yes, by and large, yes, that's true. So that's about it. Yeah. So so I kind of lament on a semi-regular basis that our kids, they didn't get their own John Hughes. They never really had anything like that.
We have kids together?
Well, yes. You have some and I have some. And who gestated him? You or me? I don't remember.
Between us, we have 9.
Well, I picked up your slack.
See, you always say I'm one-upping you. You're one-upping me.
Just barely dodged.
You're going to win this one. We're done.
yes, indeed.
You had to have those twins and say, "I got you now."
I thought I would cheat, but in hindsight, Hughes is like a director who, was not only was able to give voice to like the anxieties and weird picadillos and humor of teenage life, but he didn't pander. He didn't talk down to his intended audience. I mean, he treated a teenage film like he would make a film like Pretty in Pink or Some Kind of Wonderful or Breakfast Club, all that kind of stuff. He almost made teenage films with an adult mentality in that, like, I'm not talking, these are all people
Did you like them all?
Varying degrees of liking, I guess. I think his crowning achievement is The Breakfast Club. I don't think you're really going to get 16 Candles was good for laughs. Actually, I had never seen Pretty in Pink or Some Kind of Wonderful until like last year.
Oh, Some Kind of Wonderful was the one with the boombox, right?
Yeah. No, that's Say Anything.
Oh, you're right.
Cameron Crowe.
Yeah,
another one who actually does pretty well with the voices of young people. But no, actually, I think I liked them more than I thought I would. I was expecting. It was funny when I was a teenager. I intentionally would like beat my chest and say I don't like these movies. Obviously, Ferris Bueller's Day Off as well, which is really.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean,
and I love The Breakfast Club, and I like 16 Candles.
Yeah, and Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful is actually, I think of the two, is a little better. It's a more dramatic. But anyway, we're not here to pick apart John Hughes, but maybe we'll do a John Hughes show someday. That could be interesting. Make a note of that, will you?
John Hughes.
John Hughes. All right, thank you. But anyway, the humor of he didn't pander, he didn't talk down, and besides Edge of 17, which was I think on your list,
that was a great movie.
Yeah, from a few years ago. I don't think there's really been anyone like him before or since. He was and I've done a fair amount of reading about his life and how he went. He's got to start with National Lampoon and doing. He wrote the screenplays for Vacation.
Vacation. Yep.
And so he's a really interesting guy. Died very young too. Mid 50s, and it's kind of a sad thing. But he was really kind of a mystery man. Anyway, so. Knowing that this film was coming up this week, I was just dreading this. I can't even tell you how much I was dreading to watch this movie. I watched the trailer and I just sort of, oh man, I thought.
I get the feeling you enjoyed it.
Hang on. Am I becoming one of those predictable critics who are just like, oh, I know where he's going? But I was dreading it. And in fact, I started it relatively late one night, maybe like 8:30, 9 o'clock, after a particularly trying day. And I clearly was not in an open mind or a welcoming headspace for this movie. And so my reaction was borderline like verbally vitriolic to the screen.
Were you going to watch it in piecemeal?
I was
half hour here, half hour there.
When I do this, I'm trying to avoid that because that is my MO. When I'm trying to catch movies during the week. But when I do sit down for a review, I do want to take them in all in one sitting. So. With this horrible reaction I was having to the first 10 minutes of this movie, I'm just like, oh, these teenagers and their phones, and it was an old man reaction, and I didn't like where I was going with it. I thought I'm clearly not in the right headspace for this movie, so I'm going to back off. So luckily, actually, something came up, like one of my kids or one of my pets needed something, took me away from the film, and I said, okay, I'll pick it up later in the week. So I try again Thursday night, I think, and I was watching with my wife actually. And she also was very snarky about the thing. She's making fun of me for watching it because she knows this isn't something that's naturally in my wheelhouse. And we're getting into this thing, and we find ourselves chuckling, and then we find ourselves laughing, and then we find ourselves about 45 minutes into this thing completely invested. I mean, in every story, some more than others. I found I commented, I'm like, geez, this is kind of a young person's version of like a Robert Altman movie. There's all these different dissimilar stories that are all going to kind of tie up in the end. And, something I have to mention is the performances. The performances were all, I didn't know any of these people. I had no, besides Joan Cusack. I'm sure they're young actors who are in other places. Clearly not places I go.
I recognized a few of them. One of them is the girl who played Dora, actually, in that Dora movie I watched.
Oh, interesting. Okay. She got accolades for that too. I remember seeing people said she was really good.
And the girl in the who worked in the Awful House,
yes,
the lesbian woman, she was in a movie or the TV show Santa Clarita Diet with Drew Barrymore, where they're cannibals.
Clearly. Oh, that's funny.
They had 3 seasons of that. I don't know if that was Netflix or Amazon Prime, but it was a good series.
Clearly, you get around more than I do.
She was the daughter in that one. Other than that, I didn't recognize anybody else either.
No.
But
there's a character named Tobin who has a bit of an injury early on in the film, and it's kind of a running gag with, I guess I could just say the word without fear of spoiler, bloody nipple.
Yes.
And it was not predictable every place it went, except for, and this is where I would shave off some grade points. I just thought, as these movies do, I wasn't surprised by this, but it tied things up very neatly, very handily, very quickly in the final reel.
It has a happy ending.
Yeah, and in fact, I remember mentioning to my wife and saying, well, we're in the Love Boat phase of this, because every episode of Love Boat, they had 60 minutes to cram in their various stories, and now we're in that phase where we have to tie everything up so we can get to the credits.
You know what this movie is? Obviously, if you've listened the past few weeks, you know that I watch a lot of Hallmark movies.
Yes.
This is a Hallmark movie, pretty much.
It is, but I thought it had a bit more of an edge. I thought with stealing keggers.
Well, yes, it does have more of an edge. Hallmark is very saccharine.
Very milquetoast, yeah, absolutely. And I appreciated that edge, and I actually found at least one or two moments mildly touching. I thought that they handled. There is a sequence I must mention. There's a bit in this film. It's a soliloquy. There's the
Mick Jagger sequence where they're
dancing. That was brilliant. That was very funny.
Yes.
And again, completely unexpected, utterly from out of left field, and I wasn't expecting that at all. And that's what pleasantly surprised me is that. Everything that every corner this movie turned, when I thought it was going to do one thing, it did something completely different. And no, but there is a sequence in the Waffle House Waffle Hut.
It wasn't the Waffle House.
Yeah, it was a different name. It was an idealized version of that.
It was the Waffle something.
A young, it's a Chinese gentleman who's trying to
I like that guy.
Organize the ultimate party. Very funny performance. Very charming performance.
Keon was his name.
Yes. But there's a sequence there where the girl who is clearly in a pretty bad relationship and confronts her boyfriend there at the house and has some pretty interesting interactions with Joan Cusack. A lot of it dealing with her phone, which I thought was very funny as well and very accurate and spot on.
She chucked that phone out the window.
Ooh, the reaction was great because it's just, it's like it was. She may as well have pulled out one of her lungs. I mean, that's how crushing it is to this generation.
But she wasn't as upset as I thought she would be.
Right.
These phones aren't cheap.
Right. That's
Remember
they
used to give you free phones if you just signed up for another year?
Well, you're walking around with a computer in your pocket.
Ugh.
I mean, you're working on the computer that could have sent man to the moon in the 40 years prior. So there's a scene in the Waffle House between her and the lesbian girl. Which again I thought was a great. We were just talking a few weeks ago on the show about how Hallmark really hadn't become more inclusive,
right.
And I thought, and I mentioned that to my wife. I said, "Albert was just talking about this, and how nice that this is." I said, "If this is the place, if this is where and the direction that romantic comedies are going." I sign me up. I found it really interesting. I could watch, you go back and look at Sleepless in Seattle and Pretty Woman and You Got Mail and all that. Those are, again, they're okay. They're fine. They're passable. I think When Harry Met Sally is the best of the bunch because that was the first that really did that sort of thing, and you have good talent behind that. But, this was something that I thought this is a new style of romantic comedy, and this could revitalize the genre. People frequently say. But anyway, I have to tell you this one scene in the Waffle House between the two girls. She has a line, and I guess I'll sort of spill it here, telling her this the girl who's kind of shunned by another girl who's on kind of like a cheerleader or dance team or something, and she just says, look, and then these two best friends kind of had a falling out. And she has this great soliloquy where she says if her and Beyonce are in a house that's burning, she wouldn't say, she'd let Beyonce burn, basically. It was this great, very well written. And I found that's where it was. It was in the writing. The dialogue was really great and well done and interesting. And I would give this thing a solid 3 stars without a problem.
I was going 2.5 for me.
There we go. We're always
decent film.
Yeah, certainly subverted my expectations and, peeled away the grumpy old man that started 3 days prior. Because I mean, man, I was ready to dole out some serious bile on this thing. I thought, good, here's my first dumpster fire.
We got no conflict yet.
No, not so much. So
it was well done. It was enjoyable.
It was. I mean, will I revisit it? Oddly enough, I wouldn't right away, but maybe a year from now, I'd actually watch it again. I mean, I
don't know if I would or not, but speaking of revisiting,
yeah,
totally off topic.
No, it's okay. We're heading to a break soon anyway.
A ridiculous movie called The House Bunny?
I am familiar with it, but I did not. Is that Billy Bob Thornton?
No. It's is it Anna Faris? Is that
okay?
Her?
Sure.
That
I know. That's
Anna Faris and Colin Hanks. It is a ridiculous movie that we inherited from somebody who was getting rid of their DVD collection.
It works out that way sometimes.
I hadn't seen it, and let's just throw this piece of crap in, and it was freaking funny. I'm going to watch that every couple of years. I'm going to revisit that one.
Strangely,
The House Bunny.
You're not the first person to tell me that.
After Playboy bunny Shelley is kicked out of the Playboy mansion, she finds a job as a house mother for a sorority full of socially awkward girls. Absolutely horseshit film, but I loved it.
Well, there's our first S-bomb of the week. I was hoping now I have to check a little box on one of my areas. That's all right. That's fine. That's why I put that checkbox there for people like you. Anyway, I should mention that this film was directed by Luke Snellen, and the screenplay was by Laura Solon, Victoria Strauss, and Kay Cannon, based on Let It Snow, 3 Holiday Romances by John Green, Lauren Miracle, I wonder if that's her real name, and Maureen Johnson. So, yeah, and that's actually interesting, too, with a romantic comedy. I think if you can get both perspectives, both a male and female perspective, you're probably heading down the right path. Right now, it holds a 75% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is actually pretty solid for a movie like this. So
people like it.
Yeah, it's well liked. So if you're looking for a holiday film to gather some more, not your little kids, but more mature people in the house, you could do a lot worse. 2.5 from Burt, 3 stars from me. Let It Snow is a film. When we come back, we're going to talk about a big theatrical film. Big. And we're back on Front Row Center, the show that reviews movies. We don't remove movies, but if you want to get rid of some, we would probably come by and remove them for you.
Yeah, I'll take them.
I'll take them.
They'll come to a good home.
Absolutely. And we're going to actually have the conversation about the current state of physical media and all that. I find that an interesting discussion, but one for another day. Interesting times for those who collect movies and those who stream films and those who still a couple video stores out there, brave souls trying to survive, and they finding different angles. We're both creatures of video stores.
Yes, we are.
And
past employees.
Yes. At least a decade. I mean, between the two of us, probably 2 decades of video store work under our belts.
I think I had 7 years under my belt.
Yeah, about that. 7 or 8 over here too. Yeah.
I had one store though. You had like 3 or 4.
Well, they kept closing on me.
But all mom and pops.
They were. I actually once went to a big box like store. Do you remember, those of you in the Milwaukee area, and maybe a little bit in other states too, remember Planet Video?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so Planet Video is using the Blockbuster model, but it was born and reared here in Milwaukee. And big stores. I mean, these are huge. I mean, very large movie stores. The one I went to was I think off of Oklahoma. And
yeah, I've been to that store. I used to rent movies.
Did you? Yeah, I had a good interview.
How could you not get hired?
No, I got hired. I did.
Oh, you did?
I got hired.
Okay.
Walked in the first day, and the guy who ran the place was just like, I walked in and he rolled his eyes. Clearly he didn't want to train anybody that day. So I walked in, he rolls his eyes, hands me just a fistful of movies and says, "Here, put those away." And
I hope you said you put them away,
nope,
jerk.
I didn't say a word. I do not willingly court confrontation.
Was this your first and last day playing a video?
I put the movies. I walked towards the new release wall. I put the boxes on the floor near the new release wall. I didn't even have my jacket off yet, and I was glad because I walked right out the door. That was so satisfying, I have to say. Now, it's a little alarming because I think I did have another job at the time, so it was like a secondary job was the idea, and then I think I wound up going back to my regular like Video One, my home video store, the one that I really spent most of my years. Those of you who are local probably remember Video One and
I used to rent, and I used the word rent in quotes. A lot of movies.
Me?
To me from Video One, yeah.
Oh, sure, absolutely, yeah. I mean,
Rent for free is what it was.
We don't go there. In case anybody.
Is that why Video One's no longer in business?
I killed him. No. It was I was involved, so therefore, yeah, we won't go there. Anyway, so Ford v Ferrari, or if you're a UK listener, Le Mans 66.
Death trucks.
Yeah, yes. If you're in Turkey, maybe it's death trucks. I don't know. And we should hear what this movie is about. Strangely titled Ford v Ferrari is an odd. The last time they used like V in the title was Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. And we know how well that turned out. So anyway, tell us, please, what this movie's about.
Okay, well, this one I can tell you a little bit more about. It's basically Ford versus Ferrari is. Well, we got the Ford company wants to buy out Ferrari, and the Ferrari guy, he goes to Italy to talk to them. They try to buy them out, but Ferrari has made the best cars, and they always win the Le Mans, which is what the race that we're talking about here. And Ford wants in on that, but it turns out the Ferrari guy doesn't want to sell to Ford. He kind of gets irritated by the man.
He seemed like he may have, but then he was just
there was
turned off.
Too many stipulations, and he basically said, "Your company sucks."
Yes,
and he had a lot of expletives regarding
he called it like pig something, pig-headed,
pig whores. I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
So anyway, when this got back to the Mr. Ford, Mr. Ford was not happy, and he said, "I'm going to beat those mothers." So he wants to build his own race car, which is going to beat Ferrari at the Le Mans, and he gets Matt Damon's character, who was Carroll Shelby.
Yep.
He was a former, I don't know if it was a NASCAR driver or what, but he was a driver of some sort who was now
it
out
looked
of the
at
game.
The beginning like he was actually driving the Le Mans.
Actually, yeah, he does mention
Yeah,
he was in Le Mans at one point. So he basically hires him to help build the greatest racing car you can have and find, and he puts a team together and
putting together the GT as the car in question. The Ford GT, I believe, was the
yeah,
car.
And Shelby puts his own team together, and but he's having some problems with some of the Ford marketing people who have a certain ideas how they want things to run.
One in particular.
Yeah, and it's basically kind of a back and forth between the marketing people and the car people, and the race does happen, but we'll stop it right there.
Well, and you did leave out, actually, I will say, a critical character.
You mean Mr. Ken Miles?
Ken Miles, yes.
I got things to say about Ken Miles.
Oh, very good, excellent. So
yeah, Ken Miles is the head of the team. Actually, Carroll Shelby's the head of the team, but yeah, Ken Miles is the real car man. He's the racer, and he knows the cars in and out. But he's not exactly an appealing person physically or anything, and the marketing people don't like him.
No, they don't.
But Matt
Damon,
call him
Beatnik.
Yeah, Matt Damon knows that this guy is the best, and if you want the best car, you got to have the best man on this team.
That's the case. All right, well, that's a pretty good breakdown.
There you go.
Directed by James Mangold, who actually did a really good film in Logan, the Wolverine movie, which is very well done, and he's done many films. He's been around for a long time.
Walk the Line, I believe.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he's really just one of these very solid. You know what he does? Whenever Hollywood, I think, says we need a movie for adults, they call James Mangold. Because everything else is just greasy kid stuff. But Mangold makes movies for adults. So here's
way back 20 years. He did Girl Interrupted too.
Absolutely. So here's the story with this thing. I'm not a car guy. I never have. I never have been.
Nope.
They are tools to get me from point A to point B. Even as a kid, like I had Matchbox cars, but I wasn't really enamored with them. They were probably on my favorite toys list. They were down around number 12.
And you're probably like me. If your car suddenly starts making noise and breaks down, you call Dad.
Yeah. Well, not so much anymore. I have other, but yeah. Dad does get involved with it. Dad is involved. That's for sure. You know, and I had friends in my neighborhood who were like into like when the Indy 500 would come on television over the holiday weekend. You know, they were just. I had a couple of gear-headed friends even as a kid, and I was just like,
yeah, I don't get it myself.
No, just it wasn't my thing. Now, this indifference was completely on display for a short period of my life when I decided to become a car salesman.
You know, oddly enough, I was a car salesman for about 2 months as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Actually, 1 month.
Okay, I was about the same time. So
About
you and I have
2008.
parallel video store careers and car careers.
Did you sell any cars?
3.
Oh, damn. I had 1.
Ah, there we go. There we go. One of them was a very amusing one, and maybe I'll tell this show sometime, but maybe we have time for that
I know
today.
nothing about cars.
Well, that's just the
Nothing.
thing. So as a car salesman, it was a career I was destined to fail at, of course. But I mean, and I think actually anyone foolhardy enough to go into that snake's nest of a job is destined to fail too. You're not set up to win as a car salesman. I'm sure you identified that early on as well. But
yeah, I'm not a salesman, nor am I a car guy.
I'm
so
okay with sales.
What am I doing here?
Well, and that's probably why I did 3 because again, I'm affable. So, but then someone would ask me a question about the car, and I'd say, "I'm going to get right back to you. Let me go talk to the guy at the tower."
Well, the car is red. It's kind of smooth.
right. That's how I sold one of them, actually. I had a guy, okay, I will tell this, a brief version of the story. Third day on the job, leaning on the lot, because that's what you do. You lean and pray. And someone walked up to me. It was apparently like the 30th anniversary edition of a Camaro is what I was leaning on. Probably not a good, I have no clue.
I don't even.
It was pretty, so I leaned on it. Guy walked up to me and said, "What can you tell me about this car?" And I decided, I was already a little desperate, and I decided that this career wasn't for me, and I knew I was exiting. I knew I was just not. So I thought, I have nothing to lose. I don't care. So I said, "I can't tell you a thing about it. I don't know anything about this car. I don't know anything about cars." But then I turned around.
But it
and
looks
said,
great.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, it's a great car." I said, "Oh, why don't you tell me about it? Because I need to learn about these things to sell them. Why don't you take me for a ride?" I sold that thing. I closed that guy like 2 hours later. I'm like, that's the key. That's how you become a good car salesman. Be a moron. Just know nothing, because you're not a threat then. It's a really interesting thing. So anyway, and he taught me a lot about Camaros. So anyway, but if you're a natural fanatic of the automobile, I think you have a leg up and at least a chance because you have a passion for cars, and passions for cars is what's key here for this movie.
Well, here's what I was going to say.
Well, hang on, I got to get to my review here.
Go ahead.
So everyone in this movie is car nuts, car fixated to the point of Ken Miles. He's nearly like a car Jedi. I mean, everything, like he's talking to his son about like basically being able to sense and smell the sharp turn, and like when brakes are going out, they can feel it like in their pancreas. I mean, these guys are like, they are fused to the machine, and that's kind of interesting. So it's a testament to this movie. Now, here's another story, as we were indicating a little bit on the show. I saw this thing late. One reason being that the North Shore had crammed this thing into their smallest theater for some reason, and it kept selling out all weekend. I couldn't get in. I mean, it was, you go there to the kiosk and you're pushing buttons, and all of a sudden you look at it, and my wife and I are like, "What does gray mean?" And then we're like, "Oh, that means there's no seats."
It's done surprisingly well. They were not anticipating this because this won a couple of weeks ago when it premiered, and I forgot what Charlie's Angels came out that week.
Yeah,
and that was supposed to be the big one, which ended up bombing
big time.
And this has gone crazy.
I'm glad it's gone crazy because, again, dialing back to, I love the fact that one thing I love about this movie is it is a film for adults. It is an adult film with adult subject matter, not the kind of subject matter you watch, but adults. So, a part of me. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. It's a testament to this movie. Had it not been for this show, this podcast, I actually would have not naturally sought out this movie because I'm not a car guy. So I really thought, well, maybe I'll catch it on a streaming service later on. I do like the actors who are phenomenal in this movie. Christian Bale. I mean, my God.
I was going to say Christian Bale is going to get an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor.
And Matt Damon.
I'm convinced.
You know what's great about Matt Damon is he makes acting look so easy. He's so effortless. He just kind of does his thing, and you don't even notice. And I think that's a testament to a great actor. It's like, so I would have caught it at home because it's a car movie. And this film, that I saw at 10 o'clock at night, traditionally my bedtime, folks. I was riveted from start to finish. A part of me wanted to give this thing 3 stars because, not a top rating for this thing because I didn't have a whole lot invested in the subject matter. And I will say that's the one chink in this thing's armor for me, is that I'm not a car guy. Even though the racing sequences were completely riveting, I mean, they didn't get too long in the tooth for me. But I would say that if you're a car person, this movie is your cocaine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I mean, this would be a 4-star. This would be one for the ages. You would cite this as like one of the greatest car movies, I'm assuming, or racing movies ever made. If I was a car guy, this would be the movie of my life, the movie I've waited my whole life for.
Let me tell you, I have a couple of notes here, and you touch on the exact same things. I mean, there is a franchise called The Fast and the Furious. Which,
oh, yes.
Well, believe it or not, there are actually people who like those movies.
I've seen a few, and they are completely idiotic.
They're asinine.
But I will say, I mean, they're entertaining for what they are. They're utterly disposable, though, and they are junk. I mean, they're basically
junk,
if we had drive-ins in the South, these things would be huge.
Yeah, but people watch those. I mean, they pumped out 8 of these things, and there's a 9th one coming next year. But
it's a yearly thing. Yeah.
People love those movies for some reason. I don't get it, but they love them. But this is the kind of movie, this Ford vs. Ferrari, that will appeal to that crowd, but it also, like you said, appeals to the adults in the room,
right?
Because it is a very, very well done film.
Oh my gosh,
I was riveted. I loved it. Yeah. And this is more or less a true story. It's based on true events, and it's one of these things. I knew nothing about the Le Mans. I knew nothing about anything. But once we get in the car on the way home, I'm looking it up on Wikipedia to see what was real, what's not.
I did the same.
It pretty much it's pretty accurate overall. I'm sure they took some embellishments.
You kind of have to, yeah.
But yeah, it was just a fantastic film.
So I was going to initially give this thing 3 stars just because I had to shave off a star for the sole reason that I'm not a car guy. So it didn't emotionally engage me per se. Although I did find 2 or 3 very touching moments. I thought the stuff.
Well, the last scene in the movie too.
Oh well, that was
Matt Damon talking to the Ken Miles' son,
to his kid. Yeah, I mean, and that's something else. Again, we're talking about subverting expectations. I thought that the relationship that they put on display between Miles and his wife and his son, and there was a little bit of kind of discourse there, marital discord, I should say, but it wasn't. She was still very supportive throughout, and his son being really kind of touching kind of relationship. There was no conflict. Usually they say with conflict makes drama.
I was thinking there's going to be an alcoholic here, and there's going to be hitting his wife, and it wasn't any of that.
No, and that was refreshing.
She was very supportive.
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot of love there.
I thought the machinations of the Ford Motor Company at that time with Henry Ford II, Jr.
Which is interesting because he's actually the grandson. I found that he was actually, technically the third, but they called him the Deuce, the second. So I don't know. I didn't quite understand that, but
there's an amazing scene when Matt Damon's character, when Shelby coerces Mr. Ford into the cockpit of the racer, and this stoic, grumpy CEO of one of the largest companies in America. What happens to him? I won't spoil it, but what his reaction to that ride, and it's a hell of a ride, is superb. And I mean, I was both kind of laughing and tearing up at the same time. It was strangely moving. So anyway, but I do have to add an extra star and call this one 3.5 stars because of the filmmaking skill on display here. I don't know how much is digital. I don't know how much is practical. I don't know how many of these things they recreated, but just the little things. Jim Mangold and his crew of technicians who made this a beautiful movie to look at, from capturing the era, all the little touches, the rotary phones, the manual typewriters, the Pan Am jets. And then just the shot selections, to the lighting tricks, to when it's raining, when they're racing in the rain. I mean, that was, again, almost like going back to Dr. Sleep. My wife started crushing my hand again because she was so...
It's tense.
It's tense, and she was really invested in that side of things. So, really interesting.
So you're going 3.5
I'm going
stars?
3.5.
I was teetering between 3.5 and 3. I decided to stick with 3.
Okay.
Maybe this is 3.25.
Oh, there he goes, breaking the rules. Breaking the conventions.
Great film. I will definitely revisit this. I'm proud to add this to our collection once
it's so much fun. And if anything, the one thing, the weird takeaway I had from this is the first time in my life I almost kind of lamented that I'm not a car guy. It looked
Yeah.
like fun.
I'm still not going there.
No, it's too late for us. I
mean,
think.
it was so tense because you think, oh my God, the car's going to crash. Something's going to explode.
Well, these are by the way, these are crazy people. These are all crazy people.
Put it this way: if you're involved in this sort of lifestyle, at some point or another, you're going to crash.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And in fact, it's an accepted thing. They're just like, oh yeah, don't worry. When you start on fire, you burn this thing here. You'll burn this way. And I mean, it's no big deal. It's fine.
As long as you got that fire suit on.
Oh my gosh, just crazy. Yeah, these are the people who are involved in this kind of thing are crazy. But I mean,
there was that one scene where Miles had a crash when he was testing something, and his son was there and witnessed it.
Yeah.
And they got him out of the car, and he was on fire, but he was fine.
Yeah.
And he was talking to the guy Phil, one of the technicians.
Yeah.
And he's talking
Phil was great. I liked Phil.
Phil was fantastic.
Phil was
I loved him.
Yeah, he's an interesting.
And he's like,
character.
well, in other words, he's like, well, as long as he gets out of the car, he's fine. He's like, but if he doesn't get out, and he's like, but he did.
Right. That's all we talk about. Yeah, absolutely. So great stuff. If you're an adult or if you're a kid with a brain and looking for a compelling movie that will give you a really interesting kind of piece of American and world history, you could do a lot worse than Le Mans 66 or Ford v Ferrari if you're in the States. We're going to come back and wrap things up, and maybe we'll talk about Star Wars. We have a little bit of time this week.
I'm ready.
We
Go.
did it. We did well. Commercial cut into our Star Wars chat time, so that's unfortunate. So we're getting close. We're getting close to a very large movie coming out. I find it interesting that the director of the last Star Wars film has a film out at the same time called Knives Out, which I hope we are going to. Well, so next week is going to be I think we're going to have to call that a bye week here.
We do plan to see that.
Yes, we'll catch up, and I like to think that when we come back from our, we'll probably rerun the our Best of Decade show next week, so we can have some sort of Thanksgiving holiday.
I am here Tuesday. If you got something to say, I'm ready to talk.
I got nothing to say. I'm mum on Tuesday. It's the day before the last day of work here. No, but that's fine. We'll catch up. But Knives Out is coming out from Rian Johnson around the same time that the next Star Wars film comes out. It's called The Rise of Skywalker, and the stakes are high for this thing. Obviously, it's not going to fail, like some fanboys would have you believe. I saw you.
Don't get me started.
I saw you foolishly engage some of them last night on Facebook. Good idea.
Well, I decided to engage, but I wasn't going to fight back. I'm saying my comment and getting out.
Okay, that's the way. That's the only way you can. Like global thermonuclear war, the only winning move is not to play. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's. It's a film that apparently J.J. Abrams has decided he's not just going to wrap up the current trilogy. He's going to wrap up the entire Skywalker saga in one film. God, where do you start? I mean,
you know where I start? The first time I saw the trailer, which I think it premiered Monday night during a football game at halftime, and I watched that. I was just hit with sadness because Star Wars, it came out at the perfect age for us. I was 5. You were 6. I mean, Star Wars engulfed my childhood.
Yes.
We saw the movie several times in the theaters.
Absolutely.
We played with all the toys. I still have all my toys. It's been a subject of, I had to set up, even in the 90s when I was in my 20s, I set up my Star Wars toys in the attic and was still collecting stuff. And it's been a focus of my entire life. I've seen Star Wars over 600 times. I've seen Empire and Jedi over 500 times. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating.
No, I was there for many of those.
Yes. Star Wars has been
count.
my entire life. And just seeing that this is like, quote unquote, the end.
Yeah.
I'm sure, the franchise isn't going to die. They're going to find it. But for this particular saga, this story, Skywalker, we had Luke and Han and Leia and Chewie and R2 and 3PO. Those are our childhood people, and
one of our childhood people are back in Lando Calrissian.
That's
apparently,
true.
That looks pretty interesting, and they're recycling some Carrie Fisher footage in this thing. So. Yeah, it's a weird. Now this Mandalorian TV show, which seems to have done very well for the fans, even the people who are grousing about Disney and even the
those
fanboys,
unpleasable fanboys.
Apparently they're semi pleased.
Then this thing must be absolutely fantastic.
I know, right? I mean, these are unpleasable. Yeah,
I have not seen it. Have you?
No, I haven't touched it yet. I'm on the fence. And in fact, maybe we should talk about. It would be fun to.
I have an idea.
I have an idea too.
once all 10 episodes, I think it's 10, are out.
Is it 10 or 8 or 10? Yeah,
Yeah.
the usual.
Once
yeah.
they're out, then get Disney Plus for a month.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Binge
Which makes-
watch, and then you're done.
Yeah, and I thought we would do that for the show. Perhaps that might be a good way to, I think, maybe devote a show to all the individual episodes. We could probably cover that in an hour. It could be interesting. We're having a front row center staff meeting here on the air, so that's good. But yeah, so we rewatched. In preparation for this, my family, the bulk of my family, sat down and watched The Phantom Menace last week.
It's been a while for me.
It had been a while, quite some time for me too.
It's actually the most watched film in the theater for me. I saw it 13 times.
That's wild. That's really wild. Well, that's, the unpleasable fan community of Star Wars.
And it wasn't my favorite film by any means, but...
No, it's fine. I mean,
fine.
I regard it for what it is, and I will trust in George Lucas, even though I don't always trust his judgment for everything. I will say that I trust his judgment when he says that these are movies for children. And when people complaining about Phantom Menace being too, I don't know, infantile or or whatever the complaints were about Jar Jar Binks or
fart jokes.
Yeah, whatever. I'm like, in a sense, he's right. These are movies for kids. So just because some 20 or 30-year-old isn't able to regress enough during the running time of a Star Wars
no
film.
problem with regression.
Yeah, you've never had a problem with that.
Nope.
We can always count on you for a good session of regression. But yeah, I for what it was and for what it was at the time, that was something that really struck me rewatching The Phantom Menace just last week. Is people didn't appreciate the challenges that because I watched the documentary that was attached to that too. There's a really interesting 90-minute documentary on the making of The Phantom Menace, and some really interesting telling moments there too, where George Lucas, after the first screening, everyone looks a little pale. Yeah. They're like, I think we went too far. But when you think of and I was taking note of the computers they were using to do all of the effects compared to the computer that's on my desk right now. These were, these were antiquated times, and they were to create a fully CG character like Jar Jar Binks really had not been done before.
It hadn't been done.
I mean, and then the backgrounds, all of that, there's a great sequence, I'm sure you've seen it, where George Lucas has that initial production meeting, and he's tacking up a bunch of storyboards. And he has two pencils, like a pink pencil and a yellow pencil. And he has a special effects team behind him. And he says, "Okay, this is real, and this is fake, and this is real, and this is fake." And the fake outnumbers the real, and you can see the animators and effects guys. They are turning just gray and white because how are we going to do this? This can't be done. And he pulled it off, and he did it. And I think. It's to me it's a little frustrating that people, but a lot of people, the quote unquote fanboys, dump on some dump on the prequel trilogy, and for whatever reason, some of their complaints are valid, some are not. But as far as I'm concerned, as it stands right now, Star Wars, the 9 movies are just one big movie. That's all it is. It's one big movie.
My issue with The Phantom Menace was, and I enjoyed the film just because I love Star Wars, but to me, like the original Star Wars was something that a 5-year-old could see and understand completely. Now with episode 1, I actually had to watch that movie several times to understand every little intricacy about it. Maybe I'm overthinking it too, but there was a lot of politics in that movie, and there was a plan. The Emperor had a plan, and he was doing certain things. Yeah. I figured it all out because he was using that alien. I forget the alien group that kind of overtook the planet of Naboo.
The Trade Federation.
Yes. And but there was a lot of stuff.
Actually, they have a name. I looked at Nemoidians. I think was the name of the race.
If I was 5 years old, maybe I would have enjoyed it on the level of just watching a movie.
Yeah.
But I would not have understood it. No. As an adult, it took me several viewings to completely understand the intricacies, what exactly was happening, because I understand it was actually interwoven quite well, but honestly, I can't remember it myself now. It's been so long since I've seen it. I don't remember all, but there was the way the Emperor was using the Trade Federation, and he had a big plan. He wanted to be in charge of the Senate, and he wanted to. He had this grandiose plan of, okay, there's going to be if I do this, then we'll get who was the guy? General Zod.
Yes, the current galactic emperor. That would have been.
Yeah, I can't remember.
He has a name. I might remember. Go ahead. I'll probably remember.
But so he had this grandiose plan that worked perfectly. If I have the Trade Federation do this, then I will have the Queen Amidala's ear, and she'll vote no confidence. They'll kick him out, and I bet I'll get in there and be the new president. That was his plan all along, and it worked brilliantly.
I think it's being done right now in America.
Let's not go there.
No, never, no politics.
We're in the
politics.
wrong county for that.
Absolutely, but yeah, it's it's clunky. All the politics they threw in there. I think it was. There were probably better ways of doing that you could make like Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi a little more interesting and a little more there's a lot of things in that movie that are just kind of flat. I think that
I didn't like the kid either. What was his name? Jake?
That poor kid really. I mean, everyone involved.
He couldn't win.
No, you can't win. And again, actually watching it this time, he was fine. He's just being a kid. He's just saying dorky things that a kid would say. It's all fine. I mean, I don't know. We're moving into Attack of the Clones later on this week, which actually I remember enjoying quite a bit. It still has some clunky.
I must say though,
Yeah.
You were there with me the night that we saw The Phantom Menace. We saw it opening night.
And my wife had an asthma attack. Almost
she was selling candy too, as I recall. She brought some candy and was selling it to people.
I don't remember that.
I
but
do.
She probably did.
But yeah, we were in the. I mean,
right.
that we saw midnight. And then they would only have the midnight showings because it was opening on Friday, so they wouldn't show it at 7 o'clock like
Right.
they do now.
Yeah.
So we were there at midnight, and
Yes.
it was one of the most surreal.
Oh yeah, that was
enjoying
weird.
moments of my life.
It was
there was
wild.
People in costumes, and I mean, Star Wars had been our life, and it had. We were told for so long that there would never be any more movies, and then suddenly we have them again. We're in our late 20s, and this is. It was just unbelievably surreal and wonderful. I mean, the movie was a little bit of a letdown, but I still enjoyed it. But it was just that environment.
Yeah,
I remember looking at you and it's like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah,
this is unreal. This is unreal. There was long lines, and
we thought, and as I'm sure many nerds thought, for the bulk of like the early 90s and late 80s and everything, and certainly throughout the bulk of the 90s, was that we were the only ones who actually gave a rat's ass about Star Wars. I mean, like we talked about it, we had like the VHSs, and I remember at your old video store in Two Rivers, we would watch it, and people would kind of walk and go, "Oh yeah, Star Wars," like it was like an afterthought, and it felt weird when it was coming back. I think they were, and of course the reason it came back was
Heir to the Empire.
Heir to the Empire. It was like a market test for them to see if it was actually interest.
The book shot to #1.
Yeah, and then there was all the comic books, of course, from Dark Horse.
At the time, Star Trek was where we found the Star Trek nerds.
Yeah, sure.
Now Star Wars nerds are the same as the Star Trek nerds, but back then there were no Star Wars nerds.
Not really.
It was a little more respected than.
It's pretty quiet. And, it was just sort of a quiet little quirky fan base, and now it's this massive juggernaut of there's a Star Wars Galactic Empire. What's it called? Disney has an actual Star Wars land that's open.
I am looking forward to seeing it.
Are you gonna?
I've been to Disney World 3 or 4 or 5 times in my life, but it wasn't open obviously the last time I was there, which was about maybe 3-4 years ago.
Right. Well, Chancellor Valorum, by the way, is
Valorum. That's
Terrence Staff. So there we are.
I vote no confidence.
There we are. So yeah, it's funny that Star Wars chat kind of mostly solely centered on the Phantom Menace today. I wasn't expecting that, but I think maybe at the tail end of every episode leading up, maybe the good way of doing this is we'll talk about Attack of the Clones next week. We'll actually maybe cover every film. You have enough of a memory of these things if you're not watching them actively, and we can discuss each individual film.
I watch a lot
on the march up to the end of December. I guess is it 25th? 20th. Okay, so 5 days before
Thursday
Christmas.
night.
That'd be foolish of them to stop. That might take a dent in their box office if they open it on Christmas. Well, I guess on Christmas Day.
Christmas is a Wednesday, so
okay.
Actually it's Friday. So actually I'm seeing it December 19th, which
like the third.
It says it opens the 20th, but you know how they do that.
Yeah,
it's
they
actually
kind
the
of
19th.
bleed over. So interesting, and I won't see it, of course, until that Sunday. So we actually can't even talk about it. Well, maybe I'll get bold and try a Saturday screening.
Why don't you get bold? Because I'll have a lot to say.
I'm sure we will, and then we may.
How can you not do Star Wars opening weekend?
Well, I always do it opening weekend, but just on the tail end because I'm just always afraid that somebody will text near me and I'll get angry. I don't need that. So if you're going to sit next to me at Star Wars, keep your phone in your pocket, okay? Anyway, this was this was an episode, is what this was, and this is episode 4, our 4th episode. We're doing
A New Hope.
Yes, or an old one. A Front Row Center, a film that reviews movies on the radio.
You know, yesterday I reviewed a movie about a killer turkey. Did I mention that in the beginning?
I saw it on my YouTube stream. That's for sure.
I ain't no film snob.
All right, you look for Schlockmeisters. That's where you can find Burt mostly on doing his movie thing on YouTube for now, anyway. As long as YouTube keeps chugging along, and me, well, you can find me at the Cedarburg Public Library, and you can find me on various other shows here on CPO Radio. And we'll be back not next week, rerun next week. So tune in if you missed our best of decade, and we'll be back the week after, certainly with a review of Knives Out, and I guarantee we'll probably be talking about The Irishman.
Oh, yes. So, we'll be watching The Irishman.
At least The Irishman and
all
Knives
3
Out.
hours of it.
And yeah, absolutely. And then we'll see what happens from there. I'm sure we seem to average 2 movies per show. And that's how this will go as well. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate it. Feel free to engage us on the social medias, like the Facebook, which is the only social media we have. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Or happy Thanksgiving.